Alright, so I watched 2 new movies in February. Both of them horror. Expect a lot of that from me. The first movie I watched was a Netflix movie called Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Not to be confused with The Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Not to be confused with The Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Not to be confused with Texas Chainsaw. No, this is the sequel, reboot, continuation of the original 1974 film. But not Texas Chainsaw. That's a different sequel reboot. This one is directed by David Blue Garcia and produced by Fede Alvarez. It follows a group of social media influencers traveling to Texas to auction off some old property when Leatherface returns and various chainsaw-related shenanigans ensue. This movie has been getting torn apart by people on Twitter, but it's really not that bad. Don't get me wrong, it's still bad and doesn't really work as a sequel to the original, but compared to all of those other Texas Chainsaw Massacre movies, this one ranks somewhere in the middle for me. There's a lot of fun to be had here. This film is well shot and the music in it is pretty creepy. The film goes all out on gore. It's one of the goriest horror films I've seen in a while, which is funny when you consider that the original film really isn't all that gory, but hey, I'm fine with them going ahead and doing their own thing. They try to replicate Halloween 2018's success by having old lady... What was her name? I honestly don't remember. They try to replicate Halloween 2018's success by having old lady Hardesty return to take on old man Leatherface, but it's dumb and the rivalry doesn't work the way it does with Halloween, mainly because Laurie Strode is a far more memorable protagonist. The main characters of this film are social media influencers. Some people really hate that. I actually love that aspect of it, and I'm surprised more modern horror movies aren't doing that. There's an incredibly tasteless school shooter subplot that turns kind of pro-gun by the end. I don't think it was at all intentional, but that's what it ends up being. There's also this thing I hate that a lot of Texas Chainsaw Massacre movies tend to do, where they kind of ignore the rest of the Sawyer family and act like Leatherface was the only killer. True fans will know that the Saw is family. Like I said, this ranks somewhere in the middle for me as far as Texas Chainsaw Massacre movies. It's not nearly as fun as Part 2 or as surprisingly decent as the 2003 remake, but it's a pretty watchable slasher movie that I think people who enjoy these kind of dumb horror sequels really won't mind watching. Overall, I'm gonna give this movie a meh. I couldn't call it a good movie, but I had a fun enough time with it. There was a lot of ridiculous scenes that made me laugh out loud, but I wish it took those scenes even further. Would have liked to see this thing go full out horror comedy at some point. The next film I watched was one on Shudder called Hellbender. Hellbender is a unique film in the sense that it's directed by a family of filmmakers that refer to themselves as the Addams Family. Pretty hardcore. Hellbender is a fairly simple coming-of-age story about a young girl who learns that both her and her mother are Hellbenders, which are kinda like witches. They practice black magic and draw their abilities from hell. It's clear to see that Hellbender was made on a lower budget and that certain aspects of the film, like some of the acting, sticks out as not entirely great. Half the time it feels more like you're watching someone put on a performance, which you are, but you don't want to think that when watching a film. There is, however, that mother-daughter connection that feels very real and really was the highlight of the film for me. And I thought Toby Poser, who played the mom, did a great job. A lot of the cinematography and what they managed to pull off with special effects in this film are genuinely pretty impressive. I don't consider this movie to be anything truly amazing. I've seen other films just like it plot-wise, but it's the fact that one family managed to put together such a comprehensible and well-structured film on a smaller budget that is so commendable. It's not a great movie, but one I think people into the art of filmmaking will have tremendous respect for, and for that reason, I'll give it a thumbs up. Thank you for watching. I hope to be back next month with some more movies to review. Bye.